try and just deadpan ignore it and just have people question what's going on.
Very own Rampant Rabbit edition. Hello, everybody, and welcome to an F1 Failcast edition. My name is Bolkenberg, and alongside me, as always, as we get prepared for the pre-car launch edition of 2019's Failcast, is Esther Ben. How are you doing, my taco friend?
Hola, senor. I'm doing better than you by the sounds of it. We've both been a bit dead, though. I mean, that's why we haven't been on, because I actually... The last episode we were supposed to go live on, I messaged you like 5 minutes after we were supposed to start because I'd passed out on the sofa. I was so unwell. And I woke up and I was like, "Shit, the podcast!" But I was dead. I mean, I'm alive now, so it's fine. Hold your flowers, but you can't send cash.
Oh yeah, PayPal that. PayPal care of Taco Jesus.
PayPal.me/give me tacos. Yeah, I'm doing okay. Although I was victimised at work.
What? Is this a hashtag Me Too movement?
Yeah, hashtag Me Too, because I was at work on Thursday. And it got to around 11 o'clock, and you know how the saying goes, that you have your 11s.
Yes.
And, you know, I was in the mood for a wee bit of a snack. So we have this, like, fancy, mostly hippie food machine in the staff lounge.
Ooh, okay.
So I go down there, and I bought myself a caramel chocolate bar with shortbread. Because, you know, I'm a gentleman of distinction and class.
Yes.
Anyway, I get back to my desk, and I have an email from the company that supplies the machine telling me that I have won a 1-month membership of a gym. And suddenly I was thinking, are they trying to tell me something? Like, this in my purchase history, and it's like, dear fat boy, since you're not going to go yourself, here's a €60 ticket to go to the gym. And it's non-transferable, so they know my wily ways.
Damn it! So you couldn't cash it in and get $60 worth of I don't know, more shortbread.
No, there is no cash equivalent, unfortunately. If you can imagine such a thing.
Disgrace.
So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you all because I felt affronted and like my dignity was trod upon. I mean, I am a bit fat, but it's not really up to a vending machine to decide.
No, that's just you putting on your 2019 wings early.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just complying with the new formula. Speaking of someone who has been putting a bit of weight on to comply with the new formula, and we've got a big bag of news, obviously. How about we talk Mr. Romain Grosjean, who has apparently taken the opportunity to gain a little weight for 2019 a little bit too seriously.
A little bit. I feel like he's been trying out too many new versions of recipes for what is clearly the 2019 cookbook called Bigger Frencher. Bigger Frencher.
Isn't that his autobiography?
Yeah.
Romain Grosjean, Bigger Frencher, something else.
But then, I guess, if he can put on enough weight, then if he redoes Azerbaijan 2018 again, he can be that fat that Ericsson would have hit him. And it would have been his fault.
Maybe that's what he's doing right now. He's sat stuck trying to get out of a beanbag chair going, why would Ericsson do this? Maybe it was Ericsson who was feeding him all this food. You never know.
Yes. Alternative world. Love it.
Dear Roman, sorry we're not racing against each other this year. By way of apology for last year's coming together, please enjoy these Pizza Hut coupons. Right, I'm going to share something with you now. I have a setup that I'm quite happy with for this track, and actually it was developed for wet weather, but it works fantastically in the dry for some reason, because logic.
Okay.
And I managed to, in practice, top the timesheets almost on hard compound tyres.
Wow.
Which for some reason are blue now. When did that happen? I didn't notice that throughout the season. When did they make them blue?
Oh, because we didn't ever actually run them in anger, so we never really saw this compound.
Oh well, whatever it is, blue isn't a logical colour.
Yes, it should be.
Speaking of logic,
tires.
anyway, we were talking about Romain Grosjean, who I thought he looked as French and slightly ginger in the beard as ever during this week's Hearths launch.
I didn't notice him looking extra tubby.
No, he didn't look any more porky or depressed than usual. I have to say, though, black is a slimming colour, so maybe... Oh.
You came out twice.
We had a bit of a coming together there, but then the game decided to resolve it by other means.
Okay, I just had to watch you go past me twice. That was what confused me.
Well, which one was the real me and which one was the decoy me, we'll never know.
Dum 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 dum. Literally.
So, but that does give us a chance to open on the Hearths livery, which
Yes.
I thought was somewhat underwhelming, if only because it was so grimly predictable. I mean, that's pretty much what I imagined it would look like when I heard about this cooperation. There was just no imagination on show at all. It's just... It seems almost like... And it makes me wonder if this is why F1 Fanvoice did a livery questionnaire recently. Because it is a big part of the sport, I think. People do enjoy car launches, and people do like to discuss memorable liveries. I mean, you only have to look at the number of YouTube channels and websites that you discuss classic liveries, and there's a lot of appreciation for them. That I just sort of thought they could have done a lot more with it, because black and gold famously go very well together, but they've really been uninspired. They've just slapped logos haphazardly everywhere. They've put the Rich Energy logo on the front wing in a way that means you can't read it from almost any angle, and the gold is so dark I think that the visibility, maybe that's actually calculated, right? That despite all the big talk, maybe it is actually a joke company with no money, and so the deal is the more of what they've agreed they pay, the lighter the shade of gold becomes until their logos are actually visible to the human eye.
I like that idea.
Big Gene's not one to be taken for a ride.
No. Although yeah, I completely agree. That gold is the wrong shade of gold to make anything stand out, and so it all kind of washes into itself. The best bit of the car launch for me around the livery was when they interviewed Gunther Steiner. I was getting my Gunters and my Gustavs mixed up there.
It's fine. We'll call him Gustav. I think he'll accept it.
They all have tatches. And he was trying to say in his interview that historically all of their cars have been kind of grey, but he has an accent, and that's not how it came out. So it came out with... And there's videos, and I've seen them already, where everyone is like looking at the camera after he says, historically our cars are kind of gay, and they're like going, raise an eyebrow, raise an eyebrow.
Please tell me that it cuts to like a Benny Hill zoom in on like last year's Hearths with a voiceover that just goes, "Oh, hello, sailor."
Yeah. Oh, matron, pop your nose cone right in my tyre barrier. Yeah.
Oh, God bless him.
Absolutely amazing. And you can see like Nicky Shields is desperately trying to not laugh all the way through it all. That was my highlight of the Hearths launch. And then it was like when you spoke to the drivers, they kept on going, "Oh yeah, it looks fast, it's going to go fast," all of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well done for
it did
PR
seem very
speak.
soundbitey, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like deeply soundbitey.
Neither of them looked particularly enthused, and I don't really know why. But then...
Well, I mean, Roman's just having a sugar coma, but I don't know what K-Mag's situation is. Maybe they were fighting over who got custody of the sole can of Rich Energy that exists in the world for them to take pictures with.
Yeah.
I almost tweeted that at Grosjean, actually, because he popped up on my Twitter feed a picture of him, like, holding a can, which I noticed wasn't open. And I actually typed it out. I was like, that's a nice photo. Now it's K-Mag's turn with the can. But I thought I better not send it because Twitter ban you for literally anything now.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe K-Mags is in a K-hole, and that's why he's all confused. But yeah, it did feel really, really soundbitey. What was the best soundbite as well was when everyone's favourite homeless energy drinks company man, CEO, came out and said, Haas are my favourite F1 team. After Williams or before Williams? I just thought...
That's one of those things that's clearly false, right? You know, like someone saying, I enjoy the refreshing taste of Bovril. It just you know it's false. Bovril.
So we went from that to then saying, we're going to take the fight to Red Bull for being the best energy drinks company. But nothing to do with actually taking
since last year, though.
Oh, I know. But it was nothing to do with the actual car. And I found that really, really interesting that he was just like, yeah, it's an energy drink company war. And I was like, yeah, but you have to actually be selling your drinks first, mate.
Well, I mean, apparently he's made 90 million cans, but nobody has ever seen any of these cans. They're certainly not on sale in shops, which you think would be key to... what was his comment? He said, people who think this is a front company are the same sort of people who deny the moon landings. And I was thinking, well, sign me up to deny the moon landings then, because by Christ, is there no evidence of your company beyond... apparently there's 3 named directors, 2 of which have other jobs, and they've got less than 2 million in capital.
How the hell have they pulled that out of the bag then?
So I have no idea how they were supposed to be buying and running Force India. I mean, Force India didn't take them seriously. They say they had negotiations with McLaren and Williams that didn't pan out, and they claim it's because the terms weren't very good. I wonder if those terms involved actually paying money.
Yeah.
Haas claim to have already received some money, but they've not specified how much. It could be 50 quid for all we know. Something about it just smells really off to me.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's on sale direct from their website, which looks like it was made by a 2-year-old in GeoCities, or it's also available from high-end boutique hotels, which are obviously famous for attracting the adrenaline junkie metalheads that consume energy drinks.
Yeah,
often is the time that I think, after a run on the black level snowboard slope, why don't we pop into the Hamptons for a gammon? I mean, that's not how it works.
No. So I know of someone who works for a Haas F1, and they have drunk some cans. I'm assuming that they are made available to Haas staff members, but the whole thing still feels shady as fuck. And I just don't want it to pull Haas down with it, because this has all the screamings to me of T- for arrows.
I was going to say T- arrows, yeah.
And that was in my head because I was just going to say, sorry, that's only in my head, not only because of that, but because my favourite retro F1 uploader had just put up the last Arrows Grand Prix, which was the British 2002 one, and Tom Walkinshaw's busy saying things like, "Ah!"
Oh, that's a famous quote of his.
Is that not you in front of me?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
Did I ruin your lap?
I did it. It's okay. I'm coming in. I
didn't see you at all, mate. I'm sorry. I had the tunnel vision on. I was coming out the pits, which is a highly competitive moment for any professional athlete.
It's all good. I think I've loaded the wrong setup.
Oops.
But
where are you? What pet?
8th. But I always take a while to get used to this. Where are you?
5th.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
No, I mean I agree with you. Although, as I said at the time, because I was scared that if they bought Force India would be gone. But Haas can handle it. I think all it will do is if it doesn't work out, we'll just speed up Gene's gradual sly shuffle towards the exit door, which he began 18 months ago.
Because they had no sponsors anyway, did they?
No, the whole thing just reeks. Like, nothing about it seems good. But at least it won't totally destroy Haas. You know, they are solvent. Whereas Force India, if the guys who own the team had no money and were lying, then that would be game over for them. So, all things considered, this is the way I'd rather have it. But it's just all the talk, you know. Oh, we have a better product than Red Bull, and it's like, well, then maybe you want to let us try it.
Yeah. Pour the taurine down my throat, oh homeless wonder.
You know, and it's just like the whole thing seems deluded. You know, like if you look at his quotes, he was like, well, Dietrich Mateschitz did build a good company in 1987. I was like, exactly, 1987.
Yes.
He's been around a long time. He's a billionaire. You have less than 2 million in the whole company. I'm not even saying that's liquid cash in the bank. And you're saying, oh, we're going to go toe-to-toe with him. I mean, I don't even know how he's funded 90 million cans, to be honest.
I think they've probably been woven from his beard. We've just had a good comment in from Legend of Rhino. Great to see you, mate. We've not seen you for a while. Happy New Year. If we're going to have an energy drink fight in F1, I'd like to see Monster join in. The black and green in a livery could work quite nicely because their colours work really well already with GP bikes. Completely agree with that.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I could not possibly agree more with that sentiment because actually Project Cars 2 has a lot of Monster liveried cars.
Yes.
They do look fantastic, the black and the bright green. And plus Monster actually have the money. They're already involved in sports at a high level.
Yeah.
I mean, they were backing Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton and Schumacher at one stage. So it does make me wonder why they... But I suppose for an energy drink company, it actually makes sense to tie yourself to the driver rather than the team. Because, you know, what you really want to be saying is, look at this high-achieving athlete. He maintains his energy to train at this level and perform at this level by drinking our beverage.
Yeah, because you can't really put that onto a car, and you can kind of say, "Oh, look, the whole team is powered by Monster or Red Bull." But
no, I mean,
it's not the same when the car's out there on track. Whereas if you had like
I think Rich Energy's problem is that, you know, they've turned the Haas into a magic eye puzzle where if you look at the car under high intensity bulbs, then maybe you can make out their logo. And, you know, it kind of bothers me that I don't like the logo because, I mean, I famously really loved the black and white Arrows livery.
Yeah.
Which you'd think that'd be really boring, but it just looked sharp and crisp.
Yeah, nice little bit of Zepter on the side. Lovely.
But no. Just no, really. This whole thing reeks.
If that gold was proper spangly gold, and I'm going back to the early 2010s Lotai, that I liked that livery before I started splattering bloody PDVSA red all over it as well. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
But back when it was black and gold, and then you've got obviously the JPS Lotuses as well. They looked stunning. The Arrowses I think looked superb as well. It's just, yeah, you don't have to do much with these types of liveries, but there has to be a contrasting colour. Regardless of whatever that colour is, there has to be one. But if you just continue to like do muted versions of a colour, then it all washes into each other, and that maybe it will look better once it's out on track. But I don't have.
That's what I'm hoping for. That, you know, in direct sunlight, the livery becomes visible.
Yeah. Because I know we had very differing opinions on the McLaren initially, but that was a car that I think looked much better when it was in the Photoshop rather than out on track.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was my fear, right, that the McLaren livery would look washed out, and it did. Much like a fat girl at a disco, that McLaren looked far better in the dark.
Don't make me laugh when I'm under braking.
Sorry, but it's true. Like that McLaren looked really good on the night races.
Yes, it did.
I mean, we never really discussed the Alonso departure livery, the Fernando Alonso memorial car.
I loved that livery. Why wasn't that like that all fucking year?
That's what I was going to say. Why wasn't it like that all year? Why do you have this washed out? I mean, papaya orange. I know it's traditionally linked to the team, but it's such a 70s colour.
But if you're going to go
Isn't it?
70s garish, go all in. And that's what the Alonso livery did. And the Alonso livery reminded me of like Olympic colours. I don't know why.
Or like the old Benettons. I know they weren't orange, but you know when they had the rainbow on the back end of the car?
Yeah.
There was a touch of that about it, but I thought it just breaks up this big wall of orange that's so light you can't see your sponsors on it. But, you know, before we drift too far off topic, I did say at the time, if there's any team out there that can ruin a black and gold livery, it would be Haas. They just have no imagination. You know, considering they came into the sport saying, oh, we might make our cars yellow, you know, to have some vibrancy, and then they wheel out the most boring fucking thing I've ever seen. And every year it's been some combination of grey, white, black, and red, which are the dullest colours in Formula One.
Absolutely, and I don't know if it's just in my head, but because Gene Haas deals with workman's tools, I always associate those colours with things like Black and Decker and like being really workmanlike and like bold man text fonts and things like that, and they don't look angry and aggressive because these like that would look decent on a NASCAR because that's all about bulky manness, whereas these are elegant like pieces of art, I guess. I'm sounding wanky now, but
no, I agree with you.
I don't think
a
those
truly
two things
well-designed
collect.
chassis is beautiful.
Yeah, and therefore you go for elegance and style rather than manwich fonts.
I mean, the thing is, like, especially now, there's no excuse because you can crowdsource your livery. It takes a 2-minute search on YouTube to find people who've pulled quite literally a better looking car out of their arse.
Yeah, especially now that guy is, was it Sean Bull, who seems to produce a livery one an hour.
He works for Renault now as well.
Yeah, it is Renault, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm excited for their livery because, sorry to cut you off, but we got a teaser because I can't remember if it was Hulk or Ricardo was posting a picture in their new helmet for the year.
Ooh.
And it was majority black. And they had tape over the yellow bits. So I'm actually... I mean, their cars always look the best anyway. I think because black and yellow just works together. It's really hard to fuck it up. Mm-hmm. I'm excited for their livery. And I trust them to get it right because they've gone, people are responding well to this guy's designs, why don't we hire him? And, I mean, really, 5 seconds you can find a better Haas livery pulled from some random on the internet who would probably give you it for free.
Yeah.
They just want the recognition. And given that your aim is to create positive feeling towards your brand and to make a good impression on people, then isn't that exactly what you should be doing? Instead of telling people what they're going to like, give them what they actually like.
Yeah. Makes sense to me.
Moving on up, much like M people.
Sorry.
I was hoping you'd do that, and you didn't. You didn't disappoint me.
Throw me a carrot, and I'll go for it.
So, Mercedes, no one can decide if the livery they have shown is just for testing, like the camo ball, or if it is really their livery. They seem to be implying it's their livery. From what I've read from them, at no point have they said this is just for testing. But if you look further back in time, then this is the paint scheme they use on all their new models of car to make them harder to photograph. Right. However, there was some interesting discussion about this car on Twitter. Someone pointing out that actually it looks very similar to the Arctic camouflage pattern used by the Luftwaffe. Which is perhaps not the look they were going for. And the thing is, like, when you do look, actually it does look quite similar to the Arctic camouflage pattern employed by the Luftwaffe. So I'm wondering now if it changes quietly or if they're going to run it in testing like this. I don't know, but here's something I want to put to you. Close up, when they posted some close-up pictures of the front wing of that car, I thought that looks fucking horrible. It makes me want to vomit. But then they zoom the camera out.
Excuse me.
And, well, I don't know. Like, if you told me beforehand, it's like, Mercedes have changed away from, a plain silver livery. Ooh. And they've added some blues and maybe a touch of black. Ooh. And it's designed to look like a World War II aircraft. Ugh. It's not... I can't tell if I like it or not, because when the camera's backed away from it, there is something about it that looks kind of cool, but I don't know how it will look out on track. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't trust it to actually look good. Because there's the picture they put, like the studio photo of it, and on that, it actually looks all right, I think. But the pattern close-up is definitely gross. And I want your hot take on it.
My hot take is, it reminds me of... Do you remember when Red Bull done the camo one?
Yeah.
It reminds me of that, and the 1993 end-of-season Ligier had some kind of sexual tryst. And had a baby, because that this 1993 Ligier, for people who don't understand obscure F1 references, and I believe actually so the F1 YouTube channel had it in their top 10 unusual liveries video that came out a couple of days ago, but they basically gave their Ligier to some like artistic designer to make like a weird like wavy blobby version of it, so it would be kind of like that. And maybe throw in Mr. Blobby as well for a freeway. And that's kind of made that Mercedes livery. I'm not so sure. I don't see quite how that can attract sponsorship. If that makes sense.
Well, I mean, on the picture, it actually looks quite clearer than you would think. Given, like, the Mercedes logo is very thin by design, you actually see it fairly clearly. Certainly better than the rich logo on the heart.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you that it's probably hard to integrate new partners into it, assuming that they stick with it.
Because isn't Petronas gone now?
No. Petronas are still there. They're on the side pods and the rear wing.
I really thought that they were chopping down what they done this year. I must be lying.
Well, it keeps us on our toes. You are fake news.
Yay.
But yeah, I just, I don't know, I'm keen what other people think. I just can't tell if I like it or not. I mean, bonus points for doing something that isn't the same old that they've had for nearly 10 years now.
Yeah.
Well, no, it is 10 years this year. But I would have liked to have seen something a little bit more... I'm loath to use this word, conventional. And by conventional, I mean just, not mad as a box of twats. Which is what it is.
Yeah. I guess I'm happier that it's not like a picture of Lewis on one side and Bottas on the other side pod, as like proper like dabbing as they go down and the hand meets the front wing or something like that. Because talking of weird liveries, apologies for this random side note, there is a NASCAR driver that has printed their face onto their bonnet, and the mouth is their entire front like part of the car, and like the beard goes round the top. Looks really weird. It's like someone's put the wrong face texture onto the wrong part of the body. Like they've not done their custom livery right. But apparently
Trust NASCAR to do this.
Apparently this is exactly what's going on. So I have to say the jury is out for me in terms of the Mercedes livery. I want to see it on track, I think, before I can make judgments, because Photoshop can do wonderful things to a hunk of shit.
Yes, as evidenced by the dating experience of everybody in the internet age. That is definitely true.
Hello, Tinder.
But I kind of want to give them credit for trying something new. I just think if Red Bull had done the camo ball, only got all of it wrong, that's what it would be. Because the camo ball that worked on every level, right? It did the job of camouflaging the the structure of the car, which is what you're trying to do, really.
Yeah.
But also it looked really good, and the branding was still visible. So they could have run that during the season, and I think it would have ticked everyone's box, dinged everyone's bell, as it were. But this Mercedes livery, I think, fails unless you're designing the car to be camouflaged perfectly when it's under the sea, because it does look like a coral reef. I guess.
With those colours, I was just going to say, it's only just popped into my head. That's why I started to talk without actually knowing what was going on. With those types of colours, they remind me of the HWA Formula E team, and that's got a lovely livery. Why couldn't they have done something like that instead?
Well, because that would be what people want, and since when have Mercedes given a crap about giving people what they want?
True.
You know, give us an exciting driver like Esteban Ocon. No, never mind. Here comes Valtteri Bottas into a wall. It's just, I don't know. It's just uninspired somehow, despite their best attempts to be creative. I just don't think they're capable of. They're too much like McLaren. They're too much the engineers. That I don't think. Like, did you see their advertising campaign over the Christmas period?
Yes.
And it was just the same jokes over and over again.
Yeah.
Like they recorded new videos and they scripted them differently and everything, but at the core, they were just reusing the same concept over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, this is Mercedes all over, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's worked once, so let's just keep on chugging out the same stuff.
The same joke, yeah. But, you know, I'm going to side with you on this. Maybe it looks better on the TV. Now we have... we enter new territory because we have the Williams launch on the 11th.
Yes.
Just delivery launch. They don't want us to see the car yet, presumably because the sticky back plastic hasn't been applied, or maybe the glue hasn't set. But we will see their new livery, which contains a lot of new Polish sponsors, who I think are going to end the season very unhappy. Yeah. But I think they've given their hand away already. Partly because they seem to have released next year's team wear last year. But also, they're doing a lot of stuff in esports, and their esports team have teamwear now. And they've changed their logos and updated a bunch of stuff on the internet, and I'm thinking we might see quite a bit of sky blue from them.
Yeah. And I quite like the look of that.
Yeah, it went right up my flagpole. The problem is that if Mercedes are keeping their Luftwaffe car, we're entering a period where I think we might see a lot of clashing liveries. Because, I mean, even though the pattern's quite different on the Mercedes, I'm presuming at least, we may have two cars that are running that sort of sky bluish kind of colour. And I've got a feeling that both Haas and Renault will have gone majority black. Now, I'm sure they'll still be visually distinct, but given that, I imagine we're going to see a bit more red on the Alfa Romeo cars this year.
Yeah.
This is a complaint you and I had back in, oh God, was it 2011, I think? That all the cars were drawing from the same colour palette.
Yeah.
With I think the exception was Caterham, which had that stunning British racing green doodah going on. Oh, we meet again, Mr. Bond.
We do. Thank you. Yeah, and I don't mind cars being vaguely similar, but if they're going to be like focusing on the same things, essentially, Alfa Romeo will be a slightly different red, I hope, to Ferrari, albeit just like tiny amounts. But that's going to need to be distinguishable. We've going to have hopefully beautifully pink Force Indias still, so that will at least picture them out. Red Bull and Toro Rosso have always shared the same DNA, so that's going to not change. Yeah, I'm a bit worried that actually we're going to end up a bit 4x4, and I don't want that.
Well, I'd actually hold that thought about Racing Point Force Badger Stroll, because
Badger Stroll.
I don't know if you've noticed, but they've been updating a lot of stuff recently, and they've got the New Era Begins branding for the launch of their car, which they're launching in Canada, obviously, outside the Badger Hole, and there's no pink on it at all.
Oh no.
It's all white. And I mean, my understanding was that BWT were keen to stay on as backers, and they supported the lawsuit to unseat Vijay Mallya.
Yes, they did.
However, I'm just not seeing a lot of evidence of pink in the branding information that they're subconsciously communicating through their social media and their other press releases and so on. So I'm curious if that's actually what we're going to get.
Yeah. Oh, I hope so. I quite like,
because apparently, you know, we were going to get a new name and they've fucking washed out on that, which we'll talk about later.
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised as well, actually, if, you know, maybe Lance didn't want to drive a pink car because, you know, the other badgers in Badger School would make fun of him.
Just has a drive to do that. It's just there's only 20 cars. At least make them distinguishable, because otherwise, and this comes back to a whole, like, if you want people to start actually taking not care, but like taking more appreciation of the fact that a team is an entity in Formula One much more than it is in other motorsports, then have distinct liveries, have distinct logos, have a distinct feel about your car and brand. Don't all kind of mesh them all together, because then otherwise you just continue to perpetuate the "I'll follow my driver." So yeah, grr.
Yeah, I mean, I think F1 are taking this seriously, though, because they have been asking people's opinions on liveries and how important they are, and I thought it was quite a detailed and well-produced questionnaire, actually, which I I took the time to fill out. And they even gauged opinions of classic liveries to try and get a sense of what it was people were really looking for, and I hope... I mean, I don't want them to, you know, dictate what teams have to do, but I do hope that information is put to good use by the teams, because it is this is how they present themselves to the fans in the world, and iconic cars are remembered fondly forever. So I think it's always worth making the effort with your livery.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you? I can't remember if we talked about this in the last episode or not, but I think it was Chimpy Callum that sent us it on Twitter initially, where Liberty Media wanted to pull everyone into one big, huge car launch like ceremony thing, and I thought that was an interesting idea.
Well, I mean, it's done in other areas of motorsport.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't
like
dead
rally,
against
for
it.
example.
I just found it an interesting principle. I guess there's lots of...
I mean, given most teams now do like pit lane rollouts or web launches, I don't think we're really losing anything by merging them all together. Although, I suppose you do enter like a dangerous situation there, though, because like a lot of times the smaller teams really only get their shit together like the day before the race. So what are they supposed to do? I mean, Alfa Romeo are launching their car on the 18th, right? They're the last to roll out by quite some time. Williams are only unveiling their livery. Haas only unveiled their livery. So, you know, there's a lot of teams that just don't have their cars ready yet for a collaborative launch. So I don't know. I'm very, very curious. I'm also keen to see... to see the direction they take on other areas, not just launches. Like, they seem to be going more towards like an American franchise system. And I'm wondering how far they actually take that, because it was already last year they were talking about efforts to maintain historic names. So, you know, for example, Sauber was... I mean, even though that hasn't panned out, obviously, but Sauber was the example given that, you know, if Sauber went under... someone else could buy the team or the franchise, but they would have to call it Sauber.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm curious if they ever go any further with these kinds of initiatives, or whether they're just sort of thought experiments they float for the public. A last note on liveries before we move on to proper news.
Yeah.
I'm kind of looking forward to the Ferrari livery. However, I've got a feeling it's going to be very, very ugly.
Why is this?
No, the reason I think this is because, and again, I want to get your view on this. I mean, I'm glad Ferrari have backers and so on. But I think that Mission Winnow branding is horrible. It's really horrible. And the name doesn't make any sense. And they try and do Mission and Winnow as mirrors of each other, despite them containing different letters. So yes, an M and a W do look reversed when you put them against the mirror, but an S doesn't become an N when you put a mirror to it. It just doesn't make any sense. And I've got a feeling it's going to ruin the car. I think it ruined last year's car.
It reminds me of someone's left a barcode out in the sun for too long. I don't like it particularly. Yeah.
And it seems like they're aligning on sort of corporate image, right? And people have been saying, I think this is a reasonable assumption, take a look at the Ducati Superbikes livery for this year.
Yeah.
And they suggest, because that's got Mission Winnow all over it as well, and maybe that's representative of what we might see on the Ferrari.
Oh, okay. I'll have a look. I don't know it.
And it's sort of like a red, white, silver, and black number, but the red is a slightly different shade. I actually prefer the shade, but I just think the ratio of white to red is handled badly because of the livery, because it's all angular and it's not proportioned correctly. So here's hoping that someone listens to us, sees the rescue flag going up, and stops Ferrari making a hideous livery, because no one else seems to be listening to us.
Boo.
Right then, moving on the newsmobile. Well, since we're on Ferrari, why don't we talk about Brendan Hartley, who has joined as a test driver at Ferrari, specifically for simulator work, which I thought was interesting. Oh. He's also bagged himself a part-time drive in World Endurance, covering for Jenson Button.
Oh, cool.
So he will take Jenson Button's car for 3 rounds, I think, while Jenson is off doing Japanesey things Japanesely in Japan. I'm pleased to see him land on his feet. I was kind of hoping that maybe Brendan would get a shot at Formula E, but obviously the grid is fixed there, and I don't think there's an immediate opportunity in the offing, but I was kind of hoping that he'd pop up there, or maybe be parachuted into an F1 team mid-season to replace someone who, let's say, has only one functional arm. But regardless, I think this is a good opportunity for him, and I hope it does actually keep the door ajar for him to step in if a team ever needs a driver at short notice. Because I'd love to see him given a second shot, because I think very much like Kvyat, I think based on, his Toro Rosso performances, yeah, okay, you could argue more so with Hartley than Kvyat. I think that the time for him to be dropped in the bin was probably there.
Yeah.
However, I don't think it's necessarily representative of him as a driver, and that I think if Hartley, much like Kvyat, had been at a different team, it would be a whole different story.
Yeah. And following exactly the same trajectory as Kvyat as well, who, of course, too went to Ferrari to test for a year or so before now returning to complete his trilogy.
Yep. The return of the Kvyat. I'm pretty sure he'll be fired by Monaco, but it's nice to see him back in the colours for a little bit.
I feel like we should plan, like, every season or two, just like a little Kvyat return, just to see, like...
I thought you were going to say, why don't we do a retirement party for him, like, every year?
Yay!
I'm surprised, actually, given how cruel the internet is, that people don't keep sending him, like, sorry you're leaving cards. Or like an envelope that contains a welcome to your new job and sorry you're leaving cards in the same envelope, because that's the way it's going, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he's there until they can get Dan Ticktum or someone else in there. I mean, Alexander Albon, as excited as I am to see what he can do in Formula One, something about his appointment stinks as well. Like, I don't trust that he'll actually not end up regretting missing out on a works drive with Nissan in Formula E to come and be fired by Marco Helmut. Because I think it's actually going to end up being the biggest blunder of his career. Not least because Formula E has, as painful as this is for me to say, a much more exciting standard of racing with much more opportunities for new drivers to come in and make an impact. But also because that was a pretty safe work seat in a team that's recovering and trying to get back to the front. And they probably have given him the time and job security to really achieve something that Red Bull would never give him. I mean, does he really think he's going to unseat Verstappen or Gasly?
No. He's not even.
If he does, he needs to go see a doctor.
Because he's not even like a traditional Red Bull driver either. So therefore, they're not going to boot out someone who isn't one of their own, if that makes sense. If they're going to do any of that kind of stuff at all. I think the worry for me is, again, so Albon is very fast. He did have a little bit of an up and down time in GP2, or Formula 2 rather, but did have flashes of brilliance. But I'm almost viewing it as possibly the weakest duo on the grid, and as we saw with probably the Williams duo in 2018, particularly if the car is not going to be absolutely amazing, if you win the battle of the weakest duo on the grid, what does even if that's just people's perception, I don't really know what you gain from that. You just kind of get you should have won.
Well, I get the feeling, to be honest. First of all, I agree with you. It is definitely, to my mind, the weakest driver lineup on the grid, which is saying a lot given that Williams have a rookie and a man with one arm, but I believe so strongly in George Russell.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm unwarranted in that opinion, that I do genuinely see... I mean, what have you got, really? You've got a depressed Russian, and you've got a guy who is only in F1 because Dan Ticktum couldn't get in.
Yeah.
It all seems very transient. I think the car will actually be competent because it's basically last year's Red Bull.
Yeah.
So
That's
I suspect actually the car will be fairly capable. I just don't trust those guys to deliver. I think the pressure will build very much on Albon because, let's be honest, Toro Rosso will be run as a one-car team, I suspect, because I don't think Kvyat's going to get much support.
No.
And the pressure that will fall on Albon's shoulders to lead that team, I think will be too much, and I think he'll make a lot of silly mistakes, and that will be the end of him. Assuming they can find two other drivers to destroy in the meat grinder the next season.
Yeah, I think
I also don't know, though, because I don't think Gasly will last at Red Bull.
No, that just feels like another transient position that is just waiting to go. It
does, doesn't it? I don't know why that is, but I'm glad you feel the same way, and it's not just me. But when I saw him in the new the race overalls, I thought something about that looks wrong.
Get out!
Yeah, like it's photoshopped. And now you said the same thing. Like, I don't know, just something about it seems incorrect. And I think he's going to be too hot-headed when paired with another hothead like Verstappen, that I think they're just going to squabble all year.
Yeah. And he won't
that's my assumption.
He won't be up to Verstappen's level. He'll then do Desperate Dan moves, and it will be Kvyat 2 the revenge. The problem is that Kvyat 1, the original, is busy basically doing the I can prove myself moves by showing that he hasn't proven himself by overdriving, and that'll be that out the window. The issue, though, is that Dan Ticktum is doing exactly the same thing, but in lower formulas. I was watching So in order to get up his license points and stuff like that, Dan Tipton was taking part in F3 Asia. So this is just like him with 12 Japanese people, essentially. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll watch him. He overdrove. Yes, he was potentially the fastest person there, if not the second fastest person there. But he spent the entire thing thinking that he was better, and you could see it in his driving, and then therefore taking for granted that people would like move out of the way. And so he was driving into people off the road, spinning everywhere, then having to do recovery drives. And if I'd have looked at that, I'd have thought, what an amateur performance. And it's speed over temperament. And it's because they're putting this, I know we've spoken about this so many times, if you're in that pressure cooker environment that's set up by the helmet, you're going to basically breed that type of driver who must grab every opportunity, but in doing so may throw 3 in the bin if they haven't got the right side of that temperament sorted. And Ricciardo had mastered that, because he was on that knife edge between winner and loser so often, and was thankfully the winner on a lot of stuff. Verstappen, I think, turned a corner this year, because his first half of the season was loser all the way, but all he'd have needed is a couple of split-second decisions and they would have been a lot of winners. And then I think that turned for him in 2018. Will they give Gasly the same amount of time as they would have given Max if he comes in and does the same thing? And something tells me no.
No, there's no chance that they will. I mean, that's what I was going to say. They seem to be turning into something of a Verstappen factory, and you know, you're talking about guys who are definitely fast, but just don't have the patience, the calm mindset, or the racecraft to really deliver consistently, and it's starting to bite them in the arse. Just as I thought, you know, controversial opinion that I suspect McLaren might leave Formula One in sort of 5 to 10 years at some point. I actually could see Red Bull walking away before 2021, or at least closing down Toro Rosso.
Yeah.
Because they've been making signs in that direction for a few months now, including saying that they'd like to turn their resources to racing the Valkyrie hypercar that they built with Aston Martin, because they think there's more benefit for them doing that than there is staying in Formula One. And this is them throwing their toys out the pram about having to move to Honda power, and they agreed to it initially because, hey, it makes them a works team and maybe it works out. But in 2021 they were going to have a works deal with someone like Porsche or with Cosworth. But now the engine regulations aren't changing the way that Red Bull were hoping that they were. I think they're scared they're going to be stuck with Honda, and if this year does not go well, I think Honda will deliver reliability, but I don't think they'll deliver pace. I could see them saying, well, we're spending a lot of money and we're not allowed to compete with the big boys because no one will provide us engines. So we're going to go somewhere else where we can be better. And I'm not sure I could find it in my heart to hate them.
No.
Although I do hate them for them mocking Formula E, because they said, oh, we're not going to enter Formula E because we're about real racing. Which I read as we're about throwing money at a problem until it solves itself. No, really, I mean, because what are you saying when you make a statement like that? You're saying, well, maybe our drivers aren't actually the best, but we can throw enough money to get the best engineers that we get them across the line first. I mean, what? Surely Formula E is a chance for you to show how great your drivers and engineers are, actually. But yeah, that's what they seem to think of Formula E, that it's not a realistic place for them to go, and they seem pretty set on the hypercar route, and I kind of get that. I think the sport would be in real trouble if they did pull out, but I think it's a real risk that we should entertain the possibility.
They own 20% of the grid. I thought if they pull one, they'll pull the other. Surely you'd think, because it just makes sense to do so.
I think it would be Toro Rosso first, and then I think they keep Red.
It?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, they've already cut Toro Rosso's overheads by stopping them being a constructor, basically. I think they closed down Toro Rosso because they have no drivers to put in it, and I believe Red Bull themselves are contractually tied to Formula One until 2021. So I think they'd run Verstappen and someone else until 2021, and then they'd disappear. And I think that's a very realistic possibility. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but I think we should entertain the possibility that could actually happen, and it wouldn't take much to make it happen. Not many dominoes have to fall, I think, for that to
I
be
agree.
the case. I'm a bit frustrated because I feel like I could have been on pole, but I kept losing time in some corners because I'm out of it. I'm just not here.
I could have had Verstappen if I'd have got all of my sectors together, but that was about it.
Still, though, it's quite tight, isn't it? I mean, Lewis is quite far out in front, but between the rest of us, it's a fairly, between like third to eighth, it's not a huge
Only
spread.
half a second. Not bad at all.
I don't know what's going on with Sainz and the Hulk. So yeah, I mean, I honestly believe we could lose quite a few teams in the coming decade. I'm worried about Williams. I'm worried about McLaren. I'm worried about the Red Bull teams.
Yeah.
And Haas. I think Haas will definitely lose in sort of the next 5 years.
Yeah, and if it's interesting because that, for me, 2021 is like the big, like mental cutoff, and I can see there being not. It reminds me a little bit of when Kart and IRL kind of split to form their own little things because they had a very different opinion on how they think things should be. And it's almost like I don't see like a splinter off to a separate type of Formula One thing because we've got Formula E. That's essentially, I know they do different things, but essentially that has covered that base off. But you're right in the whole, that is, in a way when they was like 2010, 3 new teams, different Formula One. For me, 2021 is potentially 3 to 4 new teams coming in to replace 3 to 4 teams that have gone fuck it. This is the time to go.
No, I mean, it is the litmus test. I mean, I think that will be the test by which Liberty's tenure in charge of Formula One will be judged. And apparently they're already looking to sell. I don't know if you saw this news.
So this has now been debunked. So the source is actually the Liberty people who look after... not NASCAR. It's a different formula, but they have the same name. It's not Formula One. So they've actually had to come out and say, no, we're all right, thanks. But there are people basically saying, I've not done a strategy. Quick.
Sorry.
That's okay. Good, right. I was too busy chatting. No, but they have basically had to come out and say, no, we're okay, because off of the back of that report, other journalists were saying that Liberty are getting annoyed at the fact that the old establishment are all going, no, you can't come in and change our rules, which is exactly what we knew was going to happen anyway. Because F1 and their constructors, whilst love to have a political bish-bash, need to also think about how the political bish-bash that they do with each other affects the bigger picture of Formula One. And if Formula One isn't a business that can run, it doesn't matter what you're all doing to try and get the upper hand, because there won't be a Formula One to battle in.
No, I mean, but you see a lot of the symptomatic problems, I think, about this in the news every day. Whether it's recently, I think it's been Christian Horner, which further tells me that there's problems at Red Bull, because he's constantly putting out statements that are a little nonsensical, or confusing, or they seem to be sort of poking a nerve here or there. Just yesterday he was making some kind of statement saying, well, if they introduce a cost cap, it will only help the bigger teams, which I just don't understand.
No, you just...
But we know Red Bull have been against the cost cap for a while, because they don't really care, because they said, well, we'll just do it all through Red Bull Technologies, and then the team doesn't need to worry about adhering to the cost cap, because we'll just absorb the costs through Red Bull Technologies.
I wonder if that's what he means about the bigger teams then, because if you've got other pots that you can pretend the money's come from...
Yeah.
Actually,
'Cause
that makes more sense.
What he was saying
though.
was, we'll just do what Haas do, but buy everything from Red Bull Technologies. I believe is the point he was making.
Ah, okay.
So
right.
So they can spend 500 million developing a car, and they just buy the parts off the shelf.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Now I get it. Because that sentence made no sense to me when you said it first time. I was like, what? But no, I get it.
I don't know. There's a lot that they're putting out that makes me think that they're not totally settled in Formula One.
No.
Speaking of not being settled in Formula One, I've got a feeling like I'm going to have a massive accident because I'm not sharp today at all.
Okay. This could be another double DNF for the Failcast crew.
God, that was a long light.
Yeah, it was. Ooh, I've proper bogged down as well.
Yeah, me too. Getting minced now by everybody. Thanks for that. Lost my front wing.
Same. Fuck you, Vettel.
Well, it's because they try and overtake you on both sides, and then they knock you one into the other. Box this lap. Do I put on the hards? No. Medium tyres.
I was going to say it might be better to do 2 mediums.
I'm annoyed about that because I had a good chance.
Do you want to start again?
I mean, I can't... No, it's fine. It's just a racing incident, unless you need to start again. But
Well,
you can't...
My front wing's fucked as well, but...
Well, if you want, we can restart.
Yeah, let's do it. You've already stopped. Oh, and then I've just been...
But how do we do it?
If you exit out, because now I've been given terminal damage, whatever I do... Cool. And then you'll have to invite me in.
Okay.
Because I'm officially out.
I don't know how they're so fast, you know, at on the start. Because I thought initially it was because I was... we weren't doing manual clutch, but now I'm doing manual clutch. But I just bogged down so harder than them, and the AI cars just fly past.
Yeah.
Right, here we go. We have to do the stupid warm-up lap again.
That's right. Okay, let's get this in. Join. Oh, game has had a bit of a spaz. Hang on.
Not tech problems. Uh-oh.
I think it's because it's trying to invite it back into a race it knows is finished. So it's kind of gone... right, bear with me a second. I'll just try it again, just in case... No, it stopped. Right, broadcast will be back in a second for part 2 of this podcast.